I don't think I've ever asked you directly where you were when you heard that Dr. King had been shot.
Well, Mr. President, on April 4th, 1968, I was in Indianapolis, Indiana, campaigning for Robert Kennedy. I was organizing a rally, and it was Robert Kennedy that announced to the group that Dr. King had been assassinated.
Yeah, I remember the footage.
I have some very sad news for all of you, and I think sad news for all of our fellow citizens and people who love peace all over the world.
At the spot now, there's a park. It's called King Kennedy Park. I have not been back to that spot in 50 years, but I'm going back there in the next day or so.
Just to let you know, John was one of my inspirations to get into public life. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to connect the people who inspired me with the next generation of young leaders who are going to be doing outstanding things themselves.
I'm sorry about the assassination, Dr. King. How did you cope with his assassination?
Well, it was a very sad and dark time for me. He was my leader, he was my inspiration. But when he was assassinated, I said to myself, I said, listen, self, you cannot get down. You got to pick him up and keep going. And that's what I've tried to do. The thing I regret, I think, more than anything else, and I probably didn't spend enough time with him and learning from him. I thought he would be around a long time. But it was the sense of urgency that we had, you know?
Growing up now, I know that a lot of the things that we do and what we say, it could possibly come with consequences. I've seen that through your work as being a president, your work as being a congressman, and then also a protester as well. Seeing Selma, and then also documentaries about what you and the other protesters and historical figures had to do to make sure we have what we have right now. Without that, we wouldn't be sitting here having this type of conversation. So knowing that, I feel motivated to go out and say and do what I believe, and know that there may be some consequences that comes with it, because I know something good could come out of it.
And what way can being controversial be a benefit and a disadvantage?
That's a great question.
In 1963, I was 23 years old, and I was one of the speakers at the March on Washington. I spoke.
You're the only living speaker left, aren't you?
Only one out of the 10 people that spoke. Dr. King spoke number 10. I spoke number 6. And there were some people who suggested that my speech was too extreme, that it was too radical. But I thought what I had to say was important to be said. Black people in the South couldn't register to vote simply because of the color of their skin. In some places, people were asked to count the number of bubbas in a bar soap, the number of jelly beans on a jar.
If you are speaking on behalf of social justice, then by definition there's going to be some controversy. Because if it wasn't controversial, then somebody would have already fixed it. Dr. King was controversial, but he studied and thought and crafted what he had to say. And he knew when he spoke that he was expressing a truth as well as he could know it.
On the Freedom Rides in 1961, I had a seatmate, white gentleman from Connecticut, that we left on a Greyhound bus from Washington, D.C. And we arrived in a little town called Rock Hill, South Carolina, tried to desegregate a waiting room, marked white waiting, and we were attacked by members of the Klan. They beat us and left us lying in a pool of blood. Many years later, this member of the Klan was in his 70s, and his son was in his 40s, came to my office and said, Mr. Lewis, I've been a member of the Klan. One of the people that beat you and your seatmate I want to apologize. Will you accept my apology? His son started crying. He started crying. And I said, I accept your apology. He said, will you forgive me? I said, I forgive you. The two of them hugged me. I hugged them back. And the three of us cried. That's the power of the way of peace and love. The power of the philosophy and the discipline of nonviolence. You respect the dignity and the worth of every human being.
Part of what you always want to communicate to young people is that being on the right side of history isn't always popular.
No.
And it isn't always easy. And you don't know when things are going to break your way. You don't know whether your labors will deliver.
I said to the young people, especially students, I said, when you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, you have a moral obligation to do something, to say something.
Right.
And Dr. King inspired us to do just that.